So as we go forward, crawling is just going to be walking through the Adobe Aero tour where we place down a robot that we animate and we kind of drop in a kind of bookshelf toy store background as well. And then going on from there, the next step will be to walk, and that's to create a scene using the starter assets. Adobe Aero has lots of drop-in objects. You saw some of them: armadillos, foxes, dinosaurs, vases, products, and so on, letters. So there's lots of things that you can do just to create a basic scene. And I was going to do that in the space here. I'm in an empty classroom. It's school holidays here at the moment. So I was going to just walk you through how we create a scene using those starter assets. And I'd encourage you to, rather than just drop a few things in your immediate vicinity, that you try to go a few meters out. So create a scene that you can walk around. I was quite happy to see that you could create, with that Minecraft village as an example, quite a broad space that you can physically walk through, which is a real augmented experience. Run. If we get there, it would be great that we can create an experience where we use the starter assets and some imported objects. I've got a folder that I might be able to share with you guys so that you can get these Minecraft models and drop them into your own scenes. But more importantly than that, it would be good if we started to look at the behaviors and the triggers, because that's where it really becomes engaging and interactive. And those triggers can include playing sounds, links to websites. So there's lots of ways that you can use that depending on what you're trying to get out of creating those experiences. Okay. Hello, Keith. And yeah, welcome to our group. So at the moment, I've just done a bit of a demo on what we're going to be doing. I'll just go back up to that. Oops, there we go. So we're going to be doing the Adobe Aero tour that hopefully you've downloaded it, and it's on an iOS device like mine here. This is an iPhone. From the tour, we go to creating a scene and then creating an experience, which is more interactive. All right, so as we go forward, this is your Bible, okay, the Adobe Aero guide. So that little QR code on the screen, please put your phone over it, and that way you can kind of jump between Safari or your favorite browser and the app. Also, make sure you got lots of battery. I've found out that Aero is a real, battery eater. So I'm plugged in at the moment, trying to, guard against my phone dying during the process. So yeah, just watch out for your battery. And the Aero guide is fantastic. There's nothing that it doesn't cover. So all I'm really doing is, I guess, turning this guide into a couple of tutorials that we can enjoy this afternoon and have a bit of fun with. So it's at HelpX. If you just search for Adobe Aero, you'll get there if you don't use that QR code. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is crawling. And as we crawl, we are going to be doing the inbuilt interactive tour. It's a great way to learn the ropes of Adobe Aero. There's nothing it won't cover. And after that, it just comes down to your creativity, what you're trying to get out of using the app. So I'm just going to share my screen now. I'll have to stop sharing. And here's my little phone, screen, start broadcast. Alrighty, don't need audio, so I'll turn that off. And if I go into my Adobe set of apps, this here is Adobe Aero. Okay, so when you get to the welcome screen, you'll see this rather unique looking robot. And as I scroll down, these are my recent projects. That's the outdoor classroom that you just saw. This was just the water fountain. More examples of student work. And if this interactive kitchen looks familiar to you, that's because that's the file that I used to kind of create that weird little interactive space around my kitchen with the fox jumping over the dogs and my daughter touching the dinosaur and all that weird and wonderful stuff. The last one is Village in the Park, and that's the file that I used to create as I was walking around the park, just to show students what would happen if Minecraft was reality and not virtual reality. So at the very top, when you use Aero, you should be able to see the Take Interactive Tour, that blue button. Unfortunately, I can't use my pointer, so all I can really do is, point to where it is or direct your eyes there. If you've used it before and that tour drops away, if you click on the slider at the top, you've got Learn, which sits underneath the Home button, and that's where it says hands-on tutorials. There's only one hands-on tutorial, you don't need another. Everything after that just comes down to yourself. So I'm now going to go ahead and use Aero to create my first scene. I'm just going to very quickly though, turn on the lights in this classroom. You do need a fairly well-lit room, so forgive me for 1 minute while I do exactly that. All right, and I'm back. We're very energy conscious here, where if you don't move, the lights go off. So behind me, this is a classroom, a very empty classroom. This is our flexible learning space where there's lots of kind of modules and pods for students to do collaborative work. And if I spin around this way, I'm sporting my Adobe shirt today. It's Adobe Illustrator Day for me. Even there's no shirt for Aero yet. I wish there was one. So there's more of the classroom, but this space here is my play space, you could say, for this workshop. I've put a few little stools and things around. So I'm going to try to be using this space to put together our first scene. So what I'll do is I'll just hit the make your first scene button, like so, and we start to go into the Adobe Aero tour. It's about 30 steps, and what's really good about this onboard tour is it makes sure that you do each step correctly, so that you know all of the ins and outs of Aero as you get started. So we're going to build a toy store display, as it says, and I'll hit the Start Tour button, the blue button at the top. Here we go. So first thing you got to do is find surfaces, and again, you need a fairly well-lit area. This is better with a later model iOS device, and you can see how it's drawing out a mesh. It says surface found, tap to create surface anchor, and the anchor is basically just, I guess, the point of truth when we are using this software. So I'll just basically tap in the middle of my screen, and you can now see that it's quite a lively mesh that sits all over the floor space. Okay, you can see it doesn't extend up above the floor area, so it's quite intuitive how it does that. And that's the AR kit, the architecture of these iOS devices. All right, so now it's saying tap plus to add digital assets. So we'll do exactly that, step 2. Okay, so it wants us to go into the starter assets. So here we go, starter assets, toy display tutorial. I mean, you can't miss it. Look at all these great little interactive tour stops. Select the toy robot. Sure, let's go ahead and do that. All right, and now you get this like spinny wheel, and it says, where do you want to put it? I'll put him right in the middle here. I've got a big space for our little robot. So you basically tap, as it says, to place the asset. And then as you move around, our little robot stays still. If I go in close, our little robot guy gets bigger. Now tap and hold the asset and drag it where you want it. So I'll go ahead and do that. Tap and drag. And you can see how, as long as I hold my finger down, I'm dragging him around that space, okay? Use 2 fingers. So there's 1, 2, and 3 finger gestures. The first gesture when you tap and drag is for placement. So as you can see there, you can pick things up as soon as they drop down. If I use 2 fingers, that's a scale and a rotate option. So I'll do that now. I'll just drop my thumb under, and now you can see I'm starting to manipulate my thumb underneath that, and that gives me the ability to kind of twist or rotate the angle of the object, and also to scale it up. So once again, I'll click and just pinch and expand between my thumb and first finger, And now we've got a fairly imposing looking robot. Okay, so there we go. Now I've ticked that off my list. So now it's saying use 3 fingers, and that's the kind of the lifting process. So 1 is to move, 2 is to scale, 3 is to kind of lift and drop. So if I go 3 fingers up, you can see it's now levitating. I have had a bit of fun using the stars assets, where you drop the stars in, but then you have the stars in the sky, which is quite a cool effect. But anyway, I don't want a levitating robot, so I'm just going to drop him back down on the ground. Looks like he's a little bit above the ground there, so 3 fingers on the robot again. Whoops, scaled him up too big. 3 fingers, sliding down, touching the ground. That's better. Okay, great. Let's add another asset, step 10. This time we're going to grab in this bookshelf thing, I think, from memory. Backdrop. So this is a Photoshop asset. Please don't ask me how these are created in Photoshop. I would love to know more about 3D and Photoshop. I'm really just getting started there. But when you look at the quality of this asset, when I'll just make it bigger so it's more of a backdrop. There we go, looking good. And our robot, let's put him closer to it, rotate him a little bit, like so. Now let's make the robot dance. Tap the robot to select it. So I'll do exactly that, tapping on the robot now. And when that happens, you get this little behavior panel that pops up from the bottom. It's really interesting. I like the way how it goes move, rotate, scale, because move is 1 finger, rotate and scale is 2 fingers. So I like how that kind of the interface along the bottom matches how many fingers you use if you're interacting directly with your screen. Behaviors is where it gets fun, and this is where I made the robot, where I made the fox animate and other things too. So as long as the object's selected, and it is, we hit behaviors, and here's where we start to add triggers. Okay, so I'll hit the trigger button there and tap. This is probably the best one to use because it gives you control over when things animate. So I'll go ahead with the tutorial, and I clicked on tap, and you can now see that it's put a little tap bracket on the left there. So that's kind of the start of a workflow, a series of different actions that we can daisy chain together. It doesn't need to be one, it can be multiple. So then I'm going to click on action, what happens when we tap it, and we're going to make the robot spin. So again, I'm just going to tap on that. And then it gives you some options down here. You can preview it, which is always a good idea. I'll hit that little play button at the top, just outside of the viewing window. Oh, it's not going to let me. So I'll hit the tick then. There we go. So now we are going to go into preview mode. So one thing I didn't mention at the top of the app is that you've got the home button, and that's where you access all of your previous files and the help information. Edit is where you construct the scene, and preview is where you film the scene. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. Go to preview, it prepares the scene, and it says record a video of your scene. So what I'll do here, I'm just going to get up and try to walk over to the scene. So excuse me while you see the back of my head, and I'm just going to film this. So I'm going to hit the record button. You've also got the option, as you can see, just to take a snapshot, but we'll do a video because that's what the tutorial, the tour is asking us to do. So there's no 3, 2, 1. You will get this option here. If you enable microphone, that's where I got students to actually walk around their creations and explain why they put the water fountain here, why they put chairs here, and so on. So the microphone is a really useful narration tool for students if you're getting them to build interactive spaces. For this one though, I'm just going to record the screen only. I'm not going to worry about audio. So record screen, and it's recording now. You can see the timer on the top. Oh, this might drop away because it's gone into a different mode. but I'm now going to make the robot spin, and I've done that. I'll probably just hold this up here. So at the moment it's recording, and then I'll press the stop button. Okay, the stop button just sits underneath there. Okay, and I can now share my video to others, okay, in the top corner there. All right, and it says, you've just made your first scene in Aero. Amanda, how did you go?
Mike. Yeah, no, it worked really well. I just can't share my screen to you because I'm on 2 different devices.
Yeah, it's a bit of juggling today.
Yeah.
As you can see there, I'm kind of sharing a picture of my screen, but you can see that you should have at the top there the last thing that you created, and so however your robot and your toy store looks, that's what you should be seeing now on the home screen. And if you jump back to your photo, sorry, I'll just share my screen again. I think when I went to record, it bounced me off. So I'll just go back and record that again. Okay, screen, here we go again. All these things I did know how to do using Zoom before. Amazing. Okay. So my screen is back. Here we go. Into my photos. And this is the video that I just created. So it's just playing live. Pretty bad camera work there. Yep, there he goes, does his little spin. Fantastic.
Jason, can I just ask a question? Does
Sure.
this anchor it geographically? So if I make it here at home, I could only film it to share it. It's not going to, that AR experience is not going to reproduce anywhere else.
No, it's you're basically creating like a virtual movie studio on your phone. So it's just creating content and what I've done is I've used that Minecraft, the assets that sit on my phone in Aero. I'll just get out of here and go back into Aero.
So the one that you filmed in the park,
yep,
you could bring it to my school and we could walk through your world on the oval.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
All you're doing is you're basically creating or dropping objects around an anchor, and when I go somewhere else, see this one here, see the outdoor classroom on my screen now. This was filmed on another part of the school, about 2 minutes walk from where I am now. And so what you do when you load up a scene, so I'll bring this up now. It doesn't matter where you are. It's going to say, where's the floor? Yeah, and now it says surface found, tap to create the surface anchor. And so having done that, what it's now going to do is to drop in, bang, there they are.
Yeah.
So it looks totally, ridiculous in a classroom, but all it's doing is placing objects around an anchor. So it's not at all tagged to, a geographic location.
Geographically, yeah. Okay, no, that's good.
Yeah. So what you can do there, with COVID, when I was doing this back in term 2, when Queensland was in lockdown, I had the students, instead of choosing a school area to update, I said, choose a local park. And so I said, find a park that looks a bit tired and sad and create a better, space for kids to play or for families to have a barbecue, that kind of a thing. And so some students had phones at home and they were able to kind of make the stuff in Minecraft and go to the park and do it there. So, yeah, and then they were able to, export the file and we were able to look at it at school. So as you can see here, it just basically drops the objects in a space.
Great.
It is so fantastic. I love it. Any other questions? Is this how they did that Pokemon Catch the Creature event a couple of years ago? I've got no idea, but didn't the whole world go crazy over Pokemon Go? The number of people I nearly walked into on bridges around Brisbane was absolutely crazy. Max, can you import videos as assets? I'm not sure, but I would love to go into that in the next part of our workshop. So folks, if I just go back to my screen, I'm going to go back to my Aero presentation. Okay, so that was crawl. That was us basically doing the inbuilt interactive tour. I love how you can't change the steps. If you try to do one thing outside of it, it says, no, do this, choose this asset. It's a very regimented and I think a very useful workflow for you and for your students. And so I highly recommend that you use that for your, whoever you're introducing this to. Very important. So going on from there, walk. What I was going to do now, I'll get to the chat in a second, is show you how to make a more complex scene. So you've seen this very empty and very dull classroom. So I thought I'd kind of populate it with, you know, some more chairs and desks and vases and some things, you know, just liven up the space. So I'd encourage you to do the same, just to try to use your space and create a new file. And we're going to go in and we're going to start using the assets, the onboard assets that are part of the Adobe Aero app. And this won't take us very long to do because a lot of it will be involving simply the use of the 1-finger gesture for moving, 2 fingers for scaling and rotating, and 3-finger gestures for raising and lowering the objects in the space. So that's where we are going next. Okay, I'll go back and here we go again. I'm going to share my iPhone. Any questions before we get into this next demo? All right, I think I'm going to push on then. So here I go, sharing my screen again. All right. Awesome, we're back up. Okay, so going into Aero. Now this time, if I go to the top or just anywhere, you can see that little blue button in the bottom corner. That's how you create new scenes. So we're going to do exactly that. Here we go, just going to hit that button now. Bang, new scene. You'll always get the kind of scan and place. So I'm not really looking at what I'm doing here. I'm kind of looking over my shoulder. Surface found. Regarding where to drop the anchor, I tend to drop it in the middle of where I intend placing the objects. So here's my very dull, boring, empty classroom, no students, school holidays. That's all about to change. So I'm going to drop my pin right about here. As soon as you do that, the mesh changes, okay? And then we've got a nice little blue plus button in the bottom corner. Let's hit that. And let's start dropping in our starter assets. You can see that you can grab off your camera roll. Max, your question about importing videos as assets, maybe we can grab them off the camera roll. Let's have a look at that a bit later. But for now, I'm going to push on with the starter assets, which are so much fun. There are so many of them. Here we go. Starter assets. We're going to stay away from the toy display tutorial because that robot scares me. I'm going to go into furniture. So this classroom needs a bit more furniture. What will I put in there? A round table. So it's a kind of flexible learning space. So you just hit that. It's got to load up the asset. So depending on the complexity of what you're loading, you might get a spinning wheel for a period of time. Tap to place asset. I'm going to put my little table over here. All right, thinking, loading. By the way, my little iPhone's getting very hot here. So yeah, watch out with the use. Oh, it's a tiny little table, like a doll's house table. Way too small for a boys' classroom. So I'm going to click on it. Okay, 2 fingers and spread, scales it up. Now, if I kind of cast my eye across, this is where I find Adobe Aero is great for. I'm also just kind of clicking on it and dragging around to the other space. I will try to match table heights. There we go, that's a good standing table height. Now I'm going to drag him back, put him near that TV like so. I don't need to rotate the object because it's a round table. Okay, now I'm going to hit the plus again, start at assets. Let's put plants. Let's put a plant on top. Oh, let's put a bubble tree on top of that table. Why not? Okay, tap to place the asset. So now this time, whoops, I need to move again. Classroom's gone to sleep on me. Tap on top of the table. Whoop, we lost it. Start at assets, back to plants, back to the bubble tree. I'll just drop it anywhere and then I'll use 3 fingers to lift it up. And oh, what do you know? Bubble tree's hiding in the distance. So it did drop there after all. Okay, so I'm going to grab this guy, make it a bit bigger, and 3 fingers to raise it up so that I can place it on the table. I find the 3-finger gesture is a bit tricky. It takes a bit of getting used to. And here you go, you can see all my amateur attempts as I try to place this little guy around. If it doesn't work, just you've got down the bottom the delete key, so I might just drop that out. Also, while I think about it, in the bottom corner, you'll see like a little hamburger menu. And it wasn't until recently that I realized what that was. Because you can tend to create quite large spaces, if you click on that menu, it slides out and it tells you what objects you've created in the space. And so what I tend to do there, if I drop something and I can't select it because I can't, zoom in on it, you can see the bubble tree. If I select it there, which I've just done, I've got the option down the bottom to actually manually change its position, its rotation, its scale, add behaviors to duplicate it. Or in this case, I'm going to delete it because I don't want that bubble tree in the distance anymore. I want it gone. So I'll just hit the delete button there and you can see our bubble tree is gone. So this little slide menu from the side is very handy because the more complex these scenes get, sometimes it gets harder for you to actually place items. So I'm going to go off charge and I'm going to stand up. Apologies for moving away, but you should see a better view now of the actual site. So here's our table. I'm going to hit plus, start at assets, go into plants again. I think the bubble tree is cursed, so I'm going to put a large planter into the space. Tap to place the asset. Aero loads it up. Okay, we're still waiting for it to load up. This must be an awesome plant. Wow, look at it. There we go. So I'm going to click on that. There we go. Now I'm going to pinch and zoom. And I'm going to use 3 fingers to raise it up and just try to position it on top of that table. Not quite. Bring it forward. It's cutting the table in half. So now I'm going to click on it, 3 fingers again, just to raise it up like so. Now I can scale it down, twist it around. Probably not the best place for a plant in a classroom, certainly in a bustly boys' classroom like this, but you get the idea. All right, one more object. Let's add something a little bit crazy. So this time I'm going to go into the starter assets and the animated section. So this part here at the top, the second one underneath, toy display tutorial, is a fantastic little library of all sorts of crazy characters. This is where I got my dinosaur, I got my hopping fox, and the rolling armadillo. I haven't seen our, oh, the jellyfish is good fun. So let's put the jellyfish in the classroom. So I'm going to click on that. These take a bit longer to load. They're quite complex objects. So this little jellyfish, I'm going to put him over here on top of my red stool. Okay, there he is. He's very small. So I'm going to try to select him again. I'll just get up and walk over. Oh, he's way past the stool. Select. Okay, now I'm going to make him really huge. And I'm going to drag him forward with one finger. And jellyfish, let's make him float. So I'm going to use 3 fingers and raise him up so that he's floating above the space. Okay, and there we go. So now I've got a random jellyfish in the classroom. I've got my planter box sitting on a round table, and I could spend hours doing more stuff there. Are shadows possible, Jason? Like a light shadow for the pot plant? This is all just based on, I'm trying to relate this back to Dimension. I was playing with Dimension yesterday and looking at all the light sources and things like that. I don't actually know how the light sources are created in Aero, but in the top right hand corner up here, it does have 3 dots. And when I click on that, there's, all it really says is the option to align to world, and anchor settings, which is basically how everything's anchored around that center pin. There doesn't seem to be any other options as to lighting direction. Maybe it's a bit of Adobe Sensei at work here, who is kind of looking at the natural light settings and detecting shadows in the space. I do not know, to be honest. It's certainly not like Dimension, where you can drop in, you know, fill lights and floods and pin lights and so on. However, I do find that whether you're inside or outside, the lighting is quite natural for the scene. All right, so last thing to do as we go into the third part of this workshop, I'm just going to drop in, where are they? The products are quite good. Here you've got some of the things that you would have seen me drop into the other tutorials. Displays are quite good too. You've got computers. Actually, let's put a laptop over here. So I'm going to spin around to this space here. This is an empty round table, a real round table. And I'm just going to drop the laptop on there once it comes up. Okay, just waiting for that to come up. There it is, tiny little laptop. So I'll walk over and I'll click on that, make it bigger. I like how it's kind of figured out the table. Maybe it's the angle that I'm on. If I drop down, it looks like it's kind of going under the table. So you've got to be very careful if you're trying to create simulations. You've got to do your best to kind of anchor things in a way that mimics reality. At the moment, that looks like it's sitting on the table. If I was to drop down, obviously that illusion is lost. So you've got to make sure that your placement is as close to reality as it can be, and try not to change your vertical angle as you're filming. So as I spin around now, we've got our jellyfish over there, we've got our pot plant and our round table. And that's an example how you can kind of work in 360. I could come back around to where I'm set up here on the table, but we are kind of running out of time. Lights have just come back on. And now if I want to film this, I'll just go into preview. I won't hit record now because this is what stopped the iPhone from sharing before, but that's where you can record the scene, or you can just like take a snapshot. I might just take a snapshot. Okay, so that was just a quick snapshot of the planter on top of the table. Let's take a quick snapshot of our robot jellyfish. And if I now go back into my photo reel, the photos should be coming up in my photo feed. anyway, I'll get out of that. So that is the second part of our tutorial. Will we have time to cover behaviors and interactivity? Can I have a quick thumbs up or yes, let's go? Okay, great. All right, let's get stuck into it. So what I'm going to do here, again, I'm just going back into Aero. Okay, I'm going to just reset the scene. It will ask you to do this every time you go back into a file. It'll ask you to, once again, just kind of map out or mesh the area. Surface found. I'm going to drop the pin back where it was before. So hopefully things are where they were before. I'll just hit that little side button. Okay. So all I did again was I just kind of dragged out that side button, and I'm just going to get rid of the laptop. I've clicked on that. I'm going to go delete. I'm going to get rid of the large planter and delete that. Get rid of the round table. In fact, I'll even get rid of the jellyfish, and I'm just going to start to drop in some dinosaurs, some foxes, and fun things like that. Sorry about the shaky screen, folks. So I'm going to go down and hit my plus, start assets again, animated. They all sit in that top animated category. So let's drop in our dinosaur. Where's he going to go? Dinosaur roaring, where are you? Oh, you can see the arrow. It's saying he's in here somewhere. I cannot see our dinosaur at all. Oh, there he is. He's just turned up. Fantastic. So I'm going to click on it. There he is. And I'm going to scale him up just with my fingers. Make him nice and large. There you go. Scary looking dude. Now over here, I'm going to drop in our little armadillo. I don't know why I love this little armadillo guy. Just the way he rolls is very cute. My daughter loves him too. So I'm going to drop little armadillo guy over here. There he is. Let's make him a bit bigger and push him back into the scene. That way he's got a bit of roll space around where he is. Here's our big freaky dinosaur again. And finally, over here, I'm going to put the fox on the chair. Starter assets, animated, fox hopping. Very happy little chappy. There's our fox. Going to click on him. If you can't click on them, again, just go into that little side menu and you can just select on them that way. And then that way you can kind of scale them up. Just going to raise him up a bit higher and turn him around. So there you go. He's perched. He's ready to go. Next thing we have to do is to add behaviors. So you click on each of the icons. And when you do that, at the bottom, you'll see the little running man, the behaviors. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to hit trigger. So when I tap on each of them, they're going to interact. Tap. And what happens when we tap it, you can see that I'm starting to put a bit of a daisy chain together. What action will happen? We do the top one. We play animation, but you can see there you can create paths, audio, spin bounce, show and hide. You can move them. You can scale them up and down. Lots of things there to play with. We're just going to animate them. And then I'll hit the tick in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, I'm now going to go and choose my dinosaur. He's over here following the arrow. I'm going to, again, go into behaviors, trigger. When I tap, what's going to happen, I hit the plus action button. And once again, I play the animation that's built in with him. And I hit the tick in the bottom right-hand corner. Let's go on to number 3, our little friendly armadillo guy. I like how the arrows, when you select on them in that little bottom menu, the arrows say where they are in the scene. Okay, so behaviors. Hit the blue plus trigger. When we tap it, what is the action? The action is play animation and tick. All right, and we are good to go. I'm now going to switch from edit mode to preview mode. You need to be in preview mode to see our animations. So here we go. Get ready for the freak show. Preview. So nothing will happen until I tap the character. So I'm going to do that right now. I could be recording this as well. I'm just going to do a live feed though. There we go. All right, are we scared? Fantastic. Imagine if you had a student sitting under here or having them interact with it. So now let's go across and I'm going to tap our little armadillo. He's so cute. He hops around, gets in a ball, and then rolls all around the space and eventually returns back to where he came from. And our little hoppy fox, I'm going to tap on him. Shakes his head, comes forward, bounces around the space. Not a great space with the table, but you see the idea. Returns exactly to the point of origin. Year twos, absolutely. What a great way to engage them and to get them to do, little interactive stories telling through this. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you was how I bring in Minecraft models. So I can't show you Minecraft Education Edition, but there's lots of Google, YouTube videos and things like that on how to export things out. But I'm just going to drop in. I'll go back into edit mode. I'll hit the plus. And in files, what I've done on this iPhone is I've just linked it to my OneDrive. For some reason, I find that OneDrive works better with importing models. I've had a few little glitchy moments when I'm trying to import models from Google Drive. Maybe not your experience, but that's what has happened to me. So I tend to place my files in OneDrive. And what I do is I kind of share these folders with students so that they can access their assets as well. So you can see here in this shared folder, I actually made a bottle just following a simple tutorial in Adobe Dimension yesterday. So I'm going to drop in the bottle. So I've clicked on that as a file import. Where am I going to place it? I'll just put him up the bottle just in front of our little fox guy. So you can export models from from Dimension into Aero. This is quite a large file, 4 meg, so we just need to allow the loading time because it's quite high resolution. There we go. It's quite small. I'll make it bigger just so that you can all see it, and I'll spin it around. So if you've ever done the Dimension tutorial, you'll know exactly what this thing is. So that's come from Dimension. And now I'm going to just finish off by bringing in one of my students. Here's a great one. This was an accessibility table that a student in Year 7 designed in Minecraft. It took him longer to draw it than it took him to build it. That's how good students are at prototyping in Minecraft. So it's just loading up now. Wait for our thing to finish. Okay, so I'm now going to click on it, and I've just scaled it up a bit so that we can actually do a bit more of a walk around this one. I'll just quickly go in and I'm going to actually, using that little side menu, I'm going to hide the other items just by clicking the eye, just so that this is the only thing that we see. Okay, so now all we can see in our space is the table. So I'm going to scale it down. And this student created, again, table tennis is a big thing in my school at the moment. So here we have again another chess / table tennis table that you can, here's like wheelchair parking, if you like. And an area here for students to put their play pieces. As we go over here, these are some of the seats that have been designed by the student, and they go around the 3 sides. And also underneath it, you can probably see that there's wheels so that the table is movable, which allows the table to go flexibly anywhere in the space. So again, this is genuine students' work, and this is how we are using Aero and importing student work models at Villanova College. I'm very excited with this. The students love it. And it's a real good way for students to visualize their problem-solving approaches in a real space. Because what some students did is they brought their models into Adobe Aero scenes, and they realized that there wasn't enough clearance for a person to sit underneath the table when they scaled it up to be the same height as other tables in the area. So this was a real aha moment for some students where they could you know, they were kind of designing something in a space that they were familiar with, but then when they brought it into Adobe Aero and they looked at it in an augmented reality sense, they could see problems that they didn't notice until they saw it in this augmented space. So there we go. That's it, folks. And I think our workshop finishes in a few moments, or in 1 minute, actually. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you, Keith. If you're going off to a break and you're about to join another workshop, again, thank you very much. I'll just quickly pop my Twitter into the chat and my email into the chat. If you want to ask any questions at another time. Sorry I didn't record the first part, and thank you, John, for the tip there. I actually had on my piece of paper here, record. Didn't even look at my own notes. So there you go. Thank you for the tip. And yeah, I'll be definitely sharing this with the Adobe community afterwards, and I'll refilm that first part because I think it's important that we look at the context that we're using this in, not just what the tool does, but how it can be used, and yeah, what we hope to achieve out of it.
Jason, have you used this with any of the upper grades?
I don't have the option to do that. I would love to. I think that our engineering classes in year 9, they do a little bit of spaghetti bridge building and prototyping. Some of that is still done in Minecraft, but others use Tinkercad and other software where you can export them as OBJ files. And all of that can be imported into Adobe Aero. So it's got quite a wide range of import file formats. And so if you use Tinkercad or Dimension or whatever, I think it's a great way for students to visualize what they build and then kind of look at the problem solving in that space.
Do you guys have a fleet of iPads or phones, or do you just rely on the kids bringing their own devices in, or?
We don't let them use their own devices, but we have, about 12 or so iPads, which are used mainly for recording oral presentations in the school. So when you say that you want to use it for content creation, the library is very happy to loan them out instead of them just being used for recording oral presentations. And I think that's where the Adobe apps are really good. But yeah, you do need a later Model 1 to access the AR2 kit and just some of that later model architecture. Yeah.
It's a shame we've got about 60 Mini 2s. So they're quite old now. They're 5 years old. So that's the trouble.
But you might also be able to, move them on to another school and, do an upgrade, and I think if you were just to do it in a small, test environment first, maybe just get 3 of them or so, the software costs you nothing. It's just the hardware, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Fantastic tutorial. Thank you so much.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your summit. And I might see you in one of those Inject Creativity things in a couple of weeks too.